Andrew Kirkpatrick's family has been farming in the Gisborne district for 120 years. For the past 10 years, Andrew and his wife Tracy have been farming in a 50-50 partnership with Andrew's parents. After being set back by droughts and floods, the Kirkpatricks have adopted a flexible farming system. They raise 500 calves a year, grow seed maize, popcorn and maize, and have also begun a lucerne feed business.
We farm 450 hectares, 180 hectares of flat, and the rest is hill. On the hills we've got bulls, so we do bull finishing and calf rearing. We rear the calves and take them right through. Then on the flats we do cropping, so we grow seed maize, popcorn and maize, and we grow commercial lucerne for harvest, about 50 hectares of that, which is sort of evolving into a bit more now as part of our business. Originally Tracy and I were farming on our own. We had this block and the block we bought next door, and yeah, things got pretty tough, and we sort of changed how we ran it and tried to get a bit of scale by joining our whole family business together and take the focus off just sheep and beef and pull the crop in and see how the farms could complement each other. We bought the farm in 2009 and sort of hit it bang on the wrong time. We got a drought in our first season, and the financial crisis was right at the same time. We had a couple of floods and things just didn't really go our way. Yeah, financially we got sort of it was getting pretty tough, and so we sort of had to make changes, otherwise we wouldn't sort of be here. Flexibility is the name of our game now. We analyse each part of our business, and we're not sort of trying to get scale for the sake of scale, like it has to make money. We've found that a lot of time you get scale and all you're doing is decreasing your expenses across a bigger area and not necessarily getting more profitability. So we've gone to be more flexible so things can change, because our seasons have just gone haywire. So we've changed it in a big way. At the moment it's Tracy and I and my parents that farm the whole business together. The land's still owned individually, so we own our property and mum and dad own theirs. But going forward, I think we're trying to grow our lucerne business, which may give an opportunity to one or other children. They might be able to take that business to one side and carry on doing that. But yeah, our succession plan is slowly evolving, I would have to say. This is a seed maize crop, seed for silage. We grow on contract to PGG Wrightson's. The maize seed division is Corson. We do all the groundwork, planting and everything like that. Once the crop's up, they manage it from there on. They harvest and they put people through to detassel it, take the top out of the female. Basically they manage it once it's up. We go from the seed maize back into annual rye, just for the winter, and then coming out the other end in the spring, we'll either grow seed maize or chicory for the bulls, either or, it just depends. We don't really like wanting to crop it over and over again. Yeah, that's the aim.
We buy in around about 500 4-day-old Frisian bull calves from Whakatane. We source them from probably about 4 farms. We try to keep it to as few as possible, just to reduce the number of bugs that we get through the shed. We feed them, well, it's probably based loosely on the Pokawa system, once a day feeding, 2 litres of milk per day, and the afternoons they get offered calf meal with sodium bentonite, just to encourage them to eat it, help bind them up. Yeah, from there we keep them in the sheds. I have them in my calf rearing sheds, 12 per pen. We just have them in that system for 2.5 weeks, and they move into a training shed where they learn to feed on the big feeder. They're in mobs of 40 by then. And then they just go out onto the flats. By 6 weeks of age, they should be roughly around 65 kilos. And we bring them in and weigh them, and they're weaned off milk at that stage. And we continue to feed them nuts. We bring them down here to this farm on the flats. We save up paddocks, and they're fed nuts once a day, 20% calf nuts. They normally hit 100 kilos at 10 weeks old, but we continue to feed them nuts until they're 12 weeks old, just to make sure that their rumens are fully developed. From there we grow chicory crops because we are summer dry here, so we do farm for the dry, and we grow probably around about 20 hectares of chicory each year. Although they are weaned onto the hills, they are used to hill country and dogs. We do bring them off the hills when it does start to get dry around Christmas time and introduce them to the chicory crops. And from there they'll stay on those till probably March when we start to regrass again. Of that 500 calves, we'll keep 350 and they'll go up and go onto the hill country. We will keep from them 150 to 200 as 18 months. The remainder is sold between June, July, August of their first year. And then the rest are taken through on the hill country over the summer to make the most of the grass growth up there. They will then be sold roughly, well, it depends on the winter. If it looks like it's going to be a hard winter, we can dump them in June and save the pasture for the younger stock, or else we can take some through to finishing because we do have the cell system. I guess we've learnt through trial and error. You really have to nurse them from this stage onwards. Their first winter's quite crucial. Often we will take lighter mobs home to the home farm and feed them palm kernel and lucerne baleage, which we do have a lot of access to.
My father has been growing lucerne for probably 40 or 50 years, and then in the last few years we've grown the business just basically to be taking over from the cropping, look after our ground a bit more, and profitability wise it's actually a lot better than the cropping, but there's been a lot of investment in machinery and that sort of thing. We were using a contractor to bale a bit of baleage and that sort of thing, and in the last 2 years we've grown the area probably by, probably fivefold. And now we're slowly, basically supplying hay locally into pretty much most of the bull studs and that sort of thing, and now slowly looking at going outside. But at the moment, pretty much a local market. It's not the easiest thing to establish. We autumn sow our lucerne, we don't plant in the spring, mainly because we get dry springs and the weeds will grow better than the young lucerne. And then it's, a lot of fertiliser, and you have to have good ground to start with. Like, it has to be high fertility ground to really get the yields that we're getting. And we do put fertiliser on every sort of second cut as well, because none of it's staying on the paddock, it's all getting trucked away. Our oldest paddock at the moment in our rotation is, I think it's 8 years old, and it's still going, no problem. Like, it's at full yield, it's yielding the same equivalent to the rest of them, so we'll just keep them in production, keep it in production until it starts dropping off. In the spring with the cropping, we can sort of work around it. We're in total control, we can cut it when we want to, and it just makes the workload a lot more flexible. And it's in the winter, it packs it in and we don't go near it, we only spray it once in the winter. We've just planted another 16 hectares, and so on this farm we'll only have one paddock of cropping left, and it's just growing, but we're sort of doing it nice and slowly. We're making sure we've got it all right before we keep growing. We don't want to get too big and then just have it all sitting around.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.